Hey everyone, we're back with another episode of How to Get My Job. We sit down with amazing people within the design and product industry and ask them how their careers started, evolved, and what advice they have for those coming after them. Joining us today is Joel Miller, a product design lead at Figma. Hey Joel, how are you doing?
Hey, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining us today. I'm very excited to get to know a little bit more about you and your journey so far in your career in design. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's get into it with the first question. How did you get your first job in design?
So I didn't start doing product design. I originally studied graphic design at the University of Leeds, and back then I had this like vision of being a graphic designer and working in like an agency in Manchester. So I'm from Preston, which is like the northwest. So I really wanted to go to Manchester and live like the agency lifestyle of being a designer there. But on the course, a lot of students had done internships during their courses, whereas I hadn't, because I kind of wanted to just do my degree, get it done, and then go get a job. And actually, I think that kind of put me at a disadvantage coming out of university. So when I graduated, like everyone else, I applied for so many junior designer roles and internships at probably every single Manchester agency that existed, to be quite honest. And I didn't get any good like replies. A couple of people gave me some like portfolio reviews and things like that, some advice, but nothing came out of it. So with every sort of like email I sent out, my kind of aspirations and dreams kind of dropped quite a lot, and it left me feeling a little bit deflated, to be quite honest. And I think I had to be a bit more realistic about what I could get as my like first job. So my ambitions could sort of change to look in Preston where I was living at the time, because I was living back at home after university. And luckily, my mum actually knew someone that worked in an agency, and they said that they were offering internships. So I was really skeptical about it because I'd never heard about the agency and I didn't recognize any of the clients that they worked for looking at the website. So I had this like, I guess, naive or egotistical like look on the agency. But I turned up to the interview because, I had no job and I really wanted to be a designer. And luckily they were really impressed and gave me an internship, although it was unpaid. So I sort of worked there for doing some sort of like internal branding for them. So I was mainly focusing on like branding for the first couple of months, and started to do some web design. And then eventually they just needed some extra designers to do some client work. And I took that opportunity to sort of try and really impress them and show them what I could do. And eventually they started to pay me for the work because I was actually, that my work was being used for the business. And a month later, they finally offered me a job, and it wasn't like the highest paid job, but it was a designer job, and I felt like I'd made it. So that was really good. And then, I just worked there for about a year, and then eventually moved down to London to work in another design agency after that. But yeah, it was really difficult to get started. I'm very thankful for that Stone Crate, which is the first agency that gave me my big break.
Yeah, no, I've actually heard a few similar stories of how difficult it is getting your first job in design and kind of like breaking into the agency world. So it's interesting to hear another similar story. And obviously at the moment you're at Figma,
Yeah.
with a company that has an amazing product that is used by hundreds of designers around the world. What would be really great to know is, what is it like working on a product for designers? What are the challenges or the perks?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, one of those people that when I was working as a graphic designer, I wanted to be sort of like a pro at using Illustrator or Sketch or any new like prototyping or tool that came out. I was always the first one to try and like test it out in the agency and then try and bring it into our process. So when Figma came along and I was working at a tech company at the time, and we decided to switch from Sketch to Figma. It was just like amazing. I was definitely a fanboy at that time. But yeah, actually to actually work on the product, it's kind of like a dream come true, really, because I'm sort of like helping to shape the way that I do my job and also how others do their job as well. Um, so yeah, it's pretty amazing opportunity. I feel very, very lucky to be here, and yeah, very thankful too. But yeah, the benefits, I would say the biggest benefit is probably the access to the community and the community itself. So designers really aren't scared about giving feedback and telling you when something's broken, or even like suggesting ways to improve the product. A lot of designers are really loud on Twitter, which is really great because it gives you like such quick access to feeling like the pains or the frustrations, but also like what's working really well for designers and what they're really thankful for. So like having this access to this community that's more than willing to spend 30 minutes testing out a new feature or giving you some feedback is honestly amazing. And every single research call that I've ever done has just been incredibly valuable. So very, very thankful for everyone who does that. And I remember when I was working in a small startup, just how difficult it actually was to get people on the phone and to give you feedback. So yeah, it's the biggest benefit is definitely just having access to the community. I think one of the biggest challenges I would say is it's very easy to be biased when you're designing features in the product for designers because you're a designer yourself. And the way that we build the product is that we test a lot of new features out on our staging environment, which is our sort of like preview, I guess, like testing environment, to sort of like feel out the features and see where things break and how they work internally. And so sometimes you can have a lot of these different features switched on at the same time because lots of different teams are working on different aspects all at once, and you sort of lose track with the actual product that the end users are seeing. So you have to remember to force yourself to go back to like what's the production product, what everyone else is using, but also make sure you go back to the users and regularly test and get some feedback from them so that you can sort of like balance out and remove the bias. Yeah. And I think another challenging thing as well is just the work itself. So I recently worked on auto layout, which is, great to be able to work on a feature that's so popular. But the actual complexity of the project is just insane compared to, I guess, some work I've been doing in the past, more on the brand side of things. So yeah, that can be really challenging at times. Sometimes you feel like you hit a wall, and you just think there's like no way to solve like some of the complexity of like the interaction designs or just like the edge cases, because there's so many edge cases when it comes to Figma. But at the same time, like that's also a huge benefit, being able to like stay challenged and always feel like you're learning and growing. Yeah.
No, amazing. It's on the topic of designers and how amazing they are. What are the most important qualities a product designer could have?
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversation goes around like whether designers should code and things like that. And I don't think like you need to be able to code to be a good product designer. I don't, but I think one thing that is very useful to have is a good like sort of technical understanding. So if you have some sort of like foundational understanding of HTML and CSS or React, which is like what a lot of like web apps are built in, which is majority of products on software products that we use today, it really does help you to have a bit more of a closer understanding of what your developer's doing, the person that you're like partnering with on a project. And if you're able to sort of like have some understanding of how things are built and how things work, it just helps you as a designer to create a solution that might be quicker to sort of like get launched or be easier to test with. And I think in the end, like grand scheme of things, that sort of like helps you to become more senior as well in your role, because you start to get into this mindset of being able to prioritize certain features or certain design choices and not trying to do everything all at once, but seeing it in more of like an iterative approach. So I think that's a good thing to have. And I think a big one actually is storytelling and written communication skills. So a lot of what we do as a product designer is you do some design work, you present it, and you try and create a narrative around what user problem you're solving, why it's important, how it benefits the business, and how we're going to get there, and like what the end result's going to look like. And being able to sort of like tell that narrative really well is a key part of being a product designer, because it helps people to buy into your solution. It helps leadership or other stakeholders to buy into it and really see your vision as well. And being able to just communicate clearly to like different types of stakeholders. So if you're speaking to marketing, like make sure you truly understand what marketing's goals are, so that when you present your solution, you can sort of talk about it in a way which helps to benefit them. And the same for like a product manager, like trying to understand what the product manager cares about, or what a developer cares about, or what your CEO cares about. And if you can shift your narrative around your vision or your project that you want to ship, then you'll probably be pretty successful. So I found that working at Figma has allowed me to really practice doing more storytelling and written communication, because there's just so many more teams. I'm used to working in like a small startup kind of environment, and now we're close to like 900 employees. So there's a lot of different teams. There's a lot of different designers and product managers. And yeah, you sort of have to learn how to navigate around their priorities as well.
And on the topic of great advice, what is the best career advice you've ever been given?
I don't think there's like one thing that stands out in particular that some like mentors given me and I've been like, oh yeah, it's all clicked. Like, this is what I'm going to do. But I can share something, I guess, that I try to live by. And I'd say it's staying uncomfortable. So what I mean by that is when I'm in a job or I'm working on something and I'm sort of like feeling uncomfortable because I don't quite know how I'm going to get there to the end goal, or I don't quite know how I'm going to sort of like take on the challenge itself, or whether I can actually do a job or something. I think that's the best time, because it sort of like forces you to try and learn and be proactive and just, I guess, dive in the deep end and see how things go, because you have to trust in yourself that you'll figure it out in the end. And I think at that point, that's the point when you're growing most and you're learning most, when you're in the situation where you don't feel quite comfortable. And I think as soon as you become comfortable, it kind of means that you know how you're doing something and you're feeling maybe like it's a bit easier. So at that point, I always try and seek out a new project or like a new challenge, or, you know, after a few years, it might be like a new role or a different company where I'm sort of feeling like, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable here. I kind of have achieved quite a few things already. Now let's try and find something that's going to make me feel uncomfortable again. So I'm the kind of person that really likes to be challenged a lot, likes to learn a lot, feels like I'm always learning or growing or improving. And if that sort of like starts to stagnate, it makes me feel kind of like a bit down, really, because I just have like, I think I have a high standards for myself and want to push myself to be as good as I can be. So I always try to stay uncomfortable.
I love that. Yeah, but yeah, no, that's really great bit of advice there. And yeah, I love listening to your story, to how you've got to where you are in your career, and it's been great having you on the show, Joel.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Well, until next time, take care.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.